Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Brayton. I'm the host of Well-Adjusted Mama, and today's guest is Michelle Goitia. She is a prenatal yoga instructor and birth doula, and I am really excited to have her on the show today. Michelle has been practicing yoga since 2000, and she's been a full-time teacher now, focusing on prenatal and postpartum yoga, itsy bitsy yoga for babies and toddlers, as well as children's yoga classes. She's also a certified birth doula. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hi. Thank you.
So I'm really excited to hear about your story and have you tell our listeners how you got into yoga, because I know this was a major career shift for you.
Yes. Well, I am originally from New Mexico, and from third grade through college, I rode my horse. I even took my horse with me to college, and I always had a sense of peace when I was riding a horse. So when I moved east, my horse did not come with me, and I was kind of missing something, and so a friend took me to a yoga class, and I found that same peace that I used to find riding my horses on my yoga mat. So that kind of planted the seed of yoga in general. And then I was working in corporate life in marketing and sales, and at the end of the day I would go to my yoga class and I would just love I'd get my peace back to find at the end of the day. And then I just realized that I wanted to share this with other people. So I started teaching yoga, but I still wanted to do prenatal. And then once I did my prenatal training, I realized that this was my calling. And I wanted to share all of this information with all the pregnant women out there. And then I literally, the day after I completed that training, I walked into my office and I resigned and admitted that this is what I wanted to do and needed to do full time.
Beautiful story about just really being clear on your purpose and mission in life and taking, quick action.
It was scary to do it, but it was also, I just knew that it was right. So I needed to just go for it, and I did.
So I know that you do specialize in, especially working with women during their pregnancy. Can you tell us a little bit about what are the benefits of prenatal yoga?
Right. Well, the prenatal yoga, there are several benefits. One of the main things that people often say helps them with prenatal yoga is the reduction in lower back pain, and they get that space that they need in their back, and they feel better because their back is being taxed due to the uterus being pulled forward, pulling the body forward. So this movement and opens, giving space, will reduce that lower back pain. It also helps with increasing circulation. Their brain sometimes becomes a little cloudy, so with this practicing of yoga and being really in tune on their mat, they get a little bit better focus. It improves their digestion just from getting everything moving and getting the circulation going in the body. And it also helps them prepare for labor and childbirth, because being in tune with their body will help be in tune when they're in the labor and in the process, and they can kind of come back to their yoga practice to help them through the labor. But one of my near and dear to my heart of what is best from the yoga practice is the community of women and the support of women that they get within the class. I have several women that meet in prenatal yoga and are now friends because they've had their babies together, and they continue to meet up and do the baby yoga with me or the new mom support, and that is one thing that I have found invaluable for them.
It's that social support network with like-minded mothers. Really positive. And so you mentioned there's a physiological and a psychological benefit for women to do prenatal yoga. I've interviewed a psychologist, and we were talking about how stress impacts a woman during pregnancy. And I think one really great tool to help a woman mitigate that anxiety or stress that she may be feeling during the pregnancy is yoga, from that emotional perspective of feeling safe, and then that can carry through during the birth as well.
Yes. As a birth, everything comes up in labor. And as a birth doula, we work on these things in our prenatal work. And so trying to use the yoga to help kind of work through that is so beneficial during labor. And as my prenatal, my birth doula work has just clicked together so well that I can help people in prenatal yoga and then take it into their labor. So.
You mentioned how it helps with lower back pain, and as a maternity chiropractor, I'm always looking at how we can help support a woman during her pregnancy with alignment. And I find that in addition to chiropractic, the yoga practice really helps strengthen her, postural muscles, pelvic floor, which are important for helping to hold the alignment and adjustments and taking pressure off the nervous system. And then also helping for the birth, like you mentioning, helping with that labor and delivery by having a stronger pelvic core.
Right, and the pelvic core really important when it comes to the point of pushing in labor and being in tune where it is that they need to push and how they need to have their body in the position to have a natural birth.
Right. So that brings me to my next question about there is like a type of yoga that's specific about helping women during labor and delivery. How is that different than just a traditional prenatal yoga class?
Well, the yoga for labor and delivery, I teach a workshop that is worked for partners with their partner they bring to the class. But it really it starts from the practice that they do in the class itself, and then it shows their partner what they've been working on in class, and then it also shows them how these techniques that we've been learning, the pranayama, which is the breathing techniques, the asana, which is all the postures and the movements, and the meditation, can help them cope through their labor and can be used to manage the intensity of labor. And sometimes the partners are not aware of that, and in order for them to be, their partner and support them, they can see all of these things that we've been learning in class and work together to do them together. Or even just he or she can honor their partner to see, this is what she needs now, and let's try these things he can remember for her in case she doesn't remember all of the things that she needs during labor.
That's like a husband-coached birthing type of idea of having the husband or partner really being on board and aware of how he can support his partner during her birth.
Right, and I also feel like, a lot of the partners, they don't know how to help. And so in this yoga for labor and delivery, being taught all of the things that I tell them it's their bag of tricks they bring with them and bring out all of these things. And then they feel like they really, truly supported their partner in this process and were an equal partner in the process, sometimes instead of just a bystander.
Yeah, I think that's so important to feel a part of that process, and because they didn't experience the entire actual pregnancy, physical pregnancy, they can still be extremely supportive and helpful to the labor and delivery. So I had read on your website that you started doing yoga after you had your first child and continued during your second pregnancy. So I was curious if you had any personal reflection on how yoga impacted you during a pregnancy and what you noticed by not having it with the first.
Right. Well, in my first pregnancy, I hadn't been practicing yoga, like you said, and I was just listening to everything that the doctor was telling me, and I was just doing exactly what they said. Then I found yoga, and I found how incredibly light and open my body felt just regularly. I realized that, okay, now I'm pregnant again, and I'm feeling that same heaviness, but how can I make myself feel a little bit better? And so when I started doing yoga the second time around, I felt so much lighter and freer, and I also felt, your body's a little crowded when you're pregnant, and with the yoga practice, I was starting to feel like I had more space. And it just makes you feel good. But also, like I said before, the prenatal community of women, being around other women that were going through what I was going through was just so invaluable.
Oh, that's
sharing
really
stories, yeah.
Yeah, and just I guess there's a lot that can be shared, just the emotional support, but also referrals for holistic providers and
exactly.
Babysitters and everything else that goes into motherhood.
Right.
That's great. So a lot of times I have patients in my practice that want to know when they're physically able to get back to exercising after they've given birth, and that could be either vaginal or a cesarean delivery. And I know that they have to check with their OB or midwife to get the clearance, but have you noticed a timeline of typically when a woman can get back specifically to her yoga practice?
Well, it's different. It's, there's the woman who has had the cesarean, and then there's the woman who's had a vaginal birth, and so usually the recovery is quicker with the vaginal birth. We usually say 6 weeks, but it's really, I've seen women come in at 3 and 4 weeks after they've had a natural delivery and they've been practicing before and they're feeling like they want to come back. And, their body is there's no time for repair when they're in postpartum because they're not getting as much sleep as they should, and that's when our body does so much repair. And so I feel like when they can come and really relax and sometimes take that final rest in yoga and just have that time to just let their body kind of repair after, not even repair, but just kind of soak in all the benefits of yoga after it helps them. But usually it's around 6 weeks that I do see them just because they're trying to even just get their life back together and get some sort of, order in what was a new order of what they used to have before.
Mm-hmm. And when a woman does get back to practicing yoga, how does that help her kind of recover, more effectively?
Well, if they are when they're feeding the baby, their posture, because they're tired, tends to kind of be compromised. And so we do a lot of work at opening the heart and upper back work to get that posture open again and get it strong on the back side of the body. We work a lot at on the pelvic floor and the abdominal muscles to kind of regain that strength. Again, reducing stress in the body, which you had mentioned before. Being in a place where it's calm and clear, and getting just overall strength back. Some women have told me that when they come to class, it may take them a while to get there. Once they get there, they really like that they have to kind of dig deep and get that strength back, because then they realize, oh, I can do this again, and then they feel like, okay, I can come and do that again. And sometimes that first class is the hardest class to get to, but they get there. But along with coming to the yoga practice, sometimes they don't have a sit that they can take to, and in some of these postpartum classes, they can bring the baby. And so that's kind of comforting, too, to know that the baby's there with them, and they can incorporate the baby into some of their yoga practice, and they can see how to get back into the swing of things of their yoga practice, but feel so stressed about what am I going to do with the baby and where's the baby going to be. The baby will be right there with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such great bonding for the mom and baby together.
Right. And good for the baby. I mean, the baby some of the poses that we do help the baby with digestion, help the baby with calming, and sometimes the babies even sleep through the whole practice, so they get an entire yoga class on their own, or they can feed the baby while in between the practice. So it's just nice. They don't feel the stress of a time limit. They're in the class with baby.
Right, and they're just going with the flow of what the baby's needs are at that moment. That's really such a wonderful thing to have for a new mother.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our listeners may not be aware, if they're new to yoga, of if someone is brand new to yoga and wants to start doing yoga during their pregnancy, it would be safe for them to start during their first trimester, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I usually say
entire pregnancy.
Right. I usually say that pregnancy is very instinctual, and you will know when you're ready to come and to practice yoga, or anything in pregnancy and labor is instinctual. So your body pretty much tells you, okay, I feel good, let's try this. And I've even had women who have experienced that morning sickness at the beginning of their pregnancy, and they come to yoga and they feel better. Almost every woman that I work with tells me it's the one time of the week that I feel incredibly great. And so it makes me want to keep coming back for more. So that's what they get. And then, even if they've never practiced yoga before, it's a very gentle practice. And a lot of women who start yoga in prenatal yoga end up becoming yogis and doing yoga for the rest of their lives.
They get hooked. That's really cool. And, of course, they're going to want to look for an instructor who has a special certification in prenatal yoga.
Yes. There are several teacher trainings that for a little portion of their teacher training within the 200-hour certification, and then there's the specialized, full 100-hour prenatal yoga training. And I always say that the difference between the two is that there's prenatal teachers that tell you what not to do, and then there's the prenatal teachers that will tell you all the things you can do with your pregnant body. And that's the approach that I take. I like to show them what they are able to do with this beautiful body, and when they're creating a baby, how they can still feel, good in their body.
Yeah, I think that's so important to have women feel empowered because that's going to then translate through to the birth as well, of not giving up their power to a doctor, for example, but trusting their body and knowing intuitively that they know how to birth.
Right. Yeah, that is another, the empowerment is what you were just mentioning, is that I want to empower all of these women with knowledge. With my 2 pregnancies, I did what my doctor told me to do. Aside from the prenatal yoga, everything was told, I didn't know that there were other options. Nobody ever told me. I am a rule follower in some ways, so I just listened, and I trusted everything that she said. Now that I know what I know and everything that I've learned in my prenatal work, I realize there's so many other options out there. So empower them with knowledge so they can create the that they want, that they envision.
I mean, that's really what it's about, is not that the one way is right or wrong. It's just making a conscious decision based on having a lot of information instead of just one tract.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Back to the labor and delivery with the partner, empowering them with knowledge as well, so that if their partner laboring cannot make the decision, they've already discussed what their decision together is, and that the partner can empower and say, no, wait a minute, and ask the correct questions and get the answers so that they can make those decisions, instead of making them for them.
Right, and that's like going back to creating a birth plan, so that things are very clear between the partners as well as the birth provider of creating the birth that this woman wants to have.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And as your work as a doula, then you can also help support that plan coming into effect as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I remind them of all the things we worked on ahead of time, because we work for a few months before the guest date, I call it. And then when anything comes up, I just remind them, and I always remind them that there's always time to think and there's always time to pause in any situation. We will know if it's a situation where it has to be done right away, but usually there's almost always time to talk and discuss before we make a decision, or they make the decision.
Right. That gives helps to a woman to feel, like she can trust her own body in doing what's right for her and her baby, which is really what ideally birth should be all about. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with us about yoga, specifically during prenatal period?
Just that I always tell everybody to try, if they have never tried yoga before, just to try it now. And a lot of people, even after the prenatal period, they come back to say, I miss my prenatal yoga class. Just like the whole feel of the class, the gentle class, and how they felt. They always remember. And now in my work, I've over 6 years of prenatal, exclusively usually, I am now seeing women for the second time around, and that's always amazing that they come back and they say, I remember from my first time that, that it felt, and here I am again, and I feel it again. And so that always just solidifies my decision that when I quit my job those years ago, that this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And all the pictures of the babies that I received from everybody and telling me that prenatal yoga class was what helped them through this certain part or anything that I had to offer. So that is always just so refreshing. And I just love, that they felt that as well.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So if our listeners want more information about you, they can visit your website at birthandyoga.com.
Yes.
Michelle, thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brayton.